In 9th century Northumbria, a man whose life is shrouded in mystery awaited a lonesome and painful death. He was the son of a Danish king and failed to keep his oath of conquering England with just 2 ships. His boastful oath had brought him into the hands of King Ælla of Northumbria, who threw him into a snake pit, expecting him to die slowly at the mercy of the serpents. As the Danish prince awaited his death, he composed a poem that nobly recounted the deeds of his life. His legendary death song tells of the many battles in which he fought and of the daring feats he accomplished. While lying in the snake pit, surrounded and defeated by his enemies, Ragnar Lothbrok ended his poem with the defiant words, "Laughing, I shall die." The death song of Ragnar Lothbrok describes only a small portion of the legendary Viking whom it was written about. This source was composed in 12th century Iceland, and thus was probably not spoken by Ragnar himself, who lived during the 9th century AD. This poem is a great testament to the Viking fascination with death, as it heroically tells the story of Ragnar's fate. But the life and legend of Ragnar Lothbrok span far beyond this famous account of his death. Through a variety of Old Norse sagas, poetry, and medieval Latin sources, one can separate fact from fiction and learn the story of history's most famous Viking. Ragnar was said to be the son of Sigurd Ring, a Danish king who appears in Old Norse literature. According to the sagas, Ragnar grew up to be handsome and warlike, good to his men but cruel to his enemies, and a skilled warrior whom few could equal. His first crusade is described in the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok and involved assisting a Swedish jarl in defeating a local dragon. To defend himself against the beast's venom, Ragnar boiled his trousers in pitch and covered them with sand. This unconventional means of defense enabled him to defeat the dragon and earned him the epithet Lothbrok, which means shaggy breeches. In exchange for slaying the dragon, the Swedish jarl gifted Ragnar his daughter Thora's hand in marriage. Together, the couple had 2 sons, called Eric and Agnar. Eventually, Thora became ill and died. Devastated by this loss, Ragnar set sail for Norway, raiding and pillaging as Vikings often did. In Norway, Ragnar happened upon the farm of a beautiful woman called Aslog. Aslog was said to be the daughter of the legendary heroes Sigurd and Brynhild, who entrusted her care to a member of Brynhild's family. For safety, Aslog was placed inside a large harp and traveled with her caretaker, who lived as an impoverished harp player. While spending the night in the home of 2 peasants, Aslog's caretaker was murdered. The couple ended his life as they believed valuable goods were hidden within the harp. They soon discovered Aslog and raised her as the daughter of 2 peasants. Captivated by her beauty, Ragnar married Aslog. Together, they had 5 children, including Ivar the Boneless and Bjorn Ironside. Shortly after their marriage, Ragnar's men convinced him to leave Aslog because of her peasant origin. Ragnar became engaged to a Swedish princess, but Aslog learned of his plan and revealed her relation to Sigurd and Brynhild. As proof of her ancestry, Aslog prophesied that her next son through Ragnar would have a snake in his eye. When she gave birth to this son, his eye bore an interesting feature and was named Sigurd's Snake in the Eye. Realizing that Aslog was of noble birth, Ragnar broke off his engagement to the Swedish princess. His sons Eric and Agnar subsequently invaded Sweden, but died in their campaign. The Swedish army had been protected by a magical cow called Sibylla, whose magic caused the invading army to fall apart and attack itself. Upon learning of their defeat, Aslog led the sons of Ragnar in a vengeful attack against the Swedes. Ragnar's sons avenged their half-brother's death and defeated the Swedish army under the leadership and command of Aslog. In light of this victory, Ragnar Lothbrok declared an oath to conquer England with just 2 ships. This foolish promise would lead him into the hands of King Ælla of Northumbria, who cast him into a pit of snakes. Ragnar died at the hands of King Ælla, but urged his sons to avenge his death. The life and legend of Ragnar Lothbrok remain a widely debated topic. Whether Ragnar's life had a historical base, but was merely contaminated by legend, is a probable explanation for the sources that tell of his life. However, it is the sons of Ragnar that are most important when discussing medieval history, for they led the great heathen army that conquered England in the years after 866 AD. The sons of Ragnar amassed an invasion force that was the largest of its kind. They reached England in 865 and landed in East Anglia. The East Anglian king provided them with horses in exchange for peace. From there, they rode north and captured the city of York in 866. The following year, they reached Mercia and spent the winter in Nottingham. The Mercians agreed to terms with the Vikings, so they marched back to East Anglia and conquered the region. By the end of the 9th century, the sole remaining Anglo-Saxon kingdom was Wessex. In 871, Ragnar's son Halfdan led an army to the one kingdom the Vikings had not yet subdued. King of Wessex, Alfred the Great, paid the Vikings to leave, knowing that his treaty would soon be broken. Halfdan departed from Wessex to secure his kingdom in Northumbria. This left Guthrum, king of the Danelaw, in charge of conquering Alfred's kingdom. In 878, Wessex witnessed the famous battle between Guthrum's army and Alfred the Great. The Anglo-Saxons defeated his army at the Battle of Edington, but a treaty was made that allowed the Vikings to remain in control over much of England. Ragnar's sons were responsible for the culture and influence the Vikings brought to England. The campaigns of the Great Heathen Army would impact medieval England for centuries to come. According to the sagas, Ragnar's sons avenged their father by conquering Northumbria and capturing King Ælla, whom they tortured to death. The legacy of Ragnar Lothbrok spans across the whole of Northern Europe. The sagas and chronicles that tell of his life describe a man driven by warfare. Ragnar has always been an archetype for medieval Scandinavian warriors. The conquest of England by his sons affirms this notion. While it is difficult to separate fact from fiction, the fate of Ragnar at the hands of King Ælla will be remembered as something every Viking warrior strived for. A heroic death marked by the defiant words, "Laughing, I shall die."